Professor Swaran Singh, do you think that China can attack Taiwan?
Yes, academically, yes, it is possible. In fact, they have a 2005 Anti-Secession Act already in place, which identifies red lines where they say, according to Article 8 and 10, that they will be free to use non-peaceful means. Now, one can interpret that what that would mean. Even otherwise, in several statements at different levels, they have identified things like United Nations membership or any movement where Taiwan stops talking to China about unification, or worst case scenario, if Taiwan declares independence, they have identified deadlines on which there will be really use of whatever it takes, military. They normally say non-peaceful means. But what is important is to understand A, how in case of Ukraine, Chinese have definitely learned lessons. 50 nations have come together to support Ukraine, and China is a bigger challenge for United States in that sense. So United States will support Taiwan as per their two important acts, one of 1978 Taiwan Relations Act and then of 2021 Taiwan Policy Act, but they will be short of directly themselves intervening. And that is where the comment of Japanese Prime Minister Sani Takaichi becomes very interesting, where she's saying that potentially Japan could be militarily involved in case China attacks Taiwan. United States doesn't say that part. They say we'll provide weapons to Taiwan. But if push comes to shove, I think it is a possibility, but it's not desirable. It's not likely in short term. China has so many other methods and means of military blockades, military exercises, intimidation, coercion, so many things. They are already seriously engaged economically in society. Intersocial relationships are very strong. So Chinese would ideally, take a rational policy of not killing the, goose that lays golden eggs in that sense. Very strong economic relationship. But it's also true that in last decade we have seen enormous modernization of overall military, including navy, particularly amphibious forces. There is something called Shuiqiao floating bridge that they have showcased. They have also created causeway barges, so to create piers in case they are thinking of over the shore landing kind of situation. So China is very equipped to handle that kind of situation, but that's not going to be productive, is what I'm underlining. So Chinese will go to any length to do things short of a full-scale invasion.
Okay. Do you think, the professor saying, the Chinese are very, very wary of the Russian example. They think, that's the worst possible thing that could, happen to a party state. So, and they often quote it. My question is, militaries around the world create pushback. It's only in China that the military has not done a pushback in a undemocratic setup. The Communist Party weighs very heavy. How does that work?
Partly because of history and the philosophy of the Chinese Communist Party, where Mao's saying that the power flows from the barrel of gun and the party must command the gun in that sense, is clearly something that determines that party remains on top of things. And initial leaders were, of course, also wearing the twin hats. They were also military commanders as much as they were party leaders in that sense. But I do look in this, what is going on in last 2 years, as a clear bloodbath between Xi Jinping and his team, if his team supports what he's doing, and the top military commanders. Two defense ministers back to back have been removed, summarily. Similarly, a dozen senior military leaders, commanders, and so on. Now, important is to remember these are people who were anointed by Xi himself. So in that sense, what is it that, they could honorably also be, thanked and told to go home, but the way they are being removed and they just disappear from the scene after that is something that makes it suspicious. That there is something which is not very comfortable between Xi Jinping and some of these military leaders that he himself chose. This could have something to do with how military wants to conduct affairs vis-a-vis Taiwan or vis-a-vis other neighbors or vis-a-vis United States, and how Xi Jinping wants to sustain, and possibly if he's thinking of a fourth term, then his third term has been virtually lukewarm with the low level of economic development, lower growth rates, nothing spectacular. At least earlier they had these 2008 Beijing Olympics that made Hu Jintao say, this is what he achieved, really great deal he did. But in that sense, the third term, particularly of President Xi Jinping, which was unprecedented, was meant to deliver and provide Chinese with something unprecedented as well, and that has not happened. And in that context, if this is how senior military leaders, including defense ministers, are being summarily told to go and disappear, definitely underlines that there is something which is not perfectly fine.
Very quickly, sir.
Between Xi Jinping
Very
and
quickly,
his team.
very quickly. A lot of people are saying that the subprime crisis in China, the China may go into a hibernation mode. They can actually change the way they have been behaving globally. Is it correct?
There are those kind of insinuations being made that some of the experts are now saying that perhaps there is need to push up inflation prices and so on, so that certain amount of momentum of growth in terms of statistics can be still showcased, because that is something the Chinese are used to, 10%, 9% growth rates, and if that is not happening, this feels like deceleration in case of China, and that impacts all kinds of programs and projects that Chinese are used to having, and that deceleration, I think, is a matter of concern for the Chinese leaders right now.
Thank you both of you. Thank you both of you for this.